It is 8:30. We'll call the meeting, we'll call the exec finance meeting to order.
And I'll call the property committee meeting to order at 8:30.
And certification open meeting law requirements have been met. Okay. We have a 5-item agenda in front of us. Looking for a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item, discussion/action on bids for the existing courthouse renovation. Somebody else start.
I'm not going to say the same thing. It's all you, Kurt.
All right, morning, everyone. So there's a couple of handouts. One would be this one that's stapled together. This is the bid tabulation. This shows you the packages that the contractors bid on, the names. We'll get into that. And this one here is a summary for all the bids put together and then all of the other costs that are tied into the total project cost. So for those of you that aren't on property, I thought it would be good to bring you up to speed as to how we bid the project. So this project includes renovation of the balance of the campus that isn't the Justice Center. And we broke it up into 3 phases. One phase would be if we just did the north wing. And the other ones would be if we did first floor or second floor, and that's how we had contractors bid it. So when we get to this spreadsheet, you'll understand why there's some alternates that are in there. At the end of the day, this project is going to be about a 16-month project. Once we start, we're planning to start it after you move in and occupy the Justice Center, which would be after the first of the year. So then it would be a 16-month duration, and the phasing would be we would have to move people out of the north wing, do the renovation, move them back in, and then do first and second floors based on where departments would move. So there is a phasing process in regards to how we get that accomplished. But from day one until it's all done, we're estimating that it's about a 16-month duration. So it seems long, but it is, you can't do all of it at once because you're in occupied space. So that has been part of the phasing element. So we put the project out for bid. I think they hit the streets late September. The bid date was last Thursday. We got decent coverage on the bid packages that we had. The way that we bid it is that contractors can bid one or multiple packages. This, we actually had a general package where contractors could come in and bid all of the carpeting, the flooring, the wall finishes, the demolition. That's a general package. There was other smaller packages that they could have bid just the painting or the flooring, which we got a couple small numbers like that, but we didn't get a complete number that could compare to our general package. So that's why when you see the summary, we're going to show you a general package, and then we're going to show you mechanicals and electricals, okay? Any questions on our approach? So today we're not ready to give you a recommendation on award yet. We just got the bids on Thursday. We have to go through a qualification process, meaning that we have to talk to the apparent low bidders, make sure that their scope is included and that they're going to honor their number. The timing of what I would see moving forward is that we're going to need a couple of weeks to get through this qualification process, and then we would come back with a recommendation to bid to the property committee of saying this apparent low was actually qualified and we're recommending awarding the bid. We're not ready to do that today. What I wanted to do was show you who the apparent lows were, give you an idea of how much money you're looking if you do it all, and then when we come back with the qualifications, then we'll have a final number. But this is going to give you a starting point of where we think this is going to be. Because it's my understanding that based out of this meeting, then you as the committees would then have to make a discussion or have a discussion with the full board if and how you are going to pay for this money. We have until the first week of December for these bids to still be valid. So we have a 45-day window. So the bids were taken on October 19th. I think it's December 3rd or 4th, if I checked my calendar correctly. December 3rd or 4th, these bids would expire. If we get to the end or close to that December 3rd or 4th and you want to do an extension, we could talk to the contractors and say, you're the low contractor, county's still working on figuring out funding for this project. Are you willing to honor your number for an extended period of time? Okay, so there is an opportunity for you to do that. So there's nothing that no decisions that need to be made today. This is getting you up to speed on what just happened this last week and how we would move forward with the process. Okay, clear as mud? Okay, so let's start with these packages here, the smaller one. This one here is the general package that I talked to you about. This includes all demolition. This would include all of the studs and drywall, all the finishes that would be in there, doors and frames, casework, all that sort of thing. So we had 3 bidders in this category: Jarowski, Fowler, Hammer, and Olympic. You can see that Fowler is the apparent low. Fowler is actually on site right now doing the general or carpentry package for the Justice Center. If you want to flip the page, we'll look at plumbing. We did get plumbing bids, 3 of them in this category. You can see that Hooper, Seven Rivers, and WMS are all of the bidders for that project. And Seven Rivers is the apparent low. Again, our qualification is the question was just asked, do they have a hole in their bid? If you see a low number like that, that's one of the first things we ask is, what did you miss, right? So be prepared if they come back and they say, hey, we missed this or this or this, they may not honor their bid. Like we talked about when we did the Justice Center, you as a county have the right to either pull their bid bond and say, hey, you have to hold that number because we're going to go to the next one, or they can decide that they're going to honor that number, right? So we don't have that flushed out yet, but we're working on it just to kind of give you an idea on how we deal with those that have a significant spread between the low and the group that's there. Next one is HVAC. We did only get, excuse me, 2 numbers in there, Winona and WMS. And you can see that Winona, that was a tight number. So those were very close in regards to the HVAC numbers for that scope of work. The last one is our electrical, and we did only get 1 bid on the electrical, and B&B is already on campus doing work for the Justice Center. So every one of them, we did get multiple except for the electrical. So go to the next sheet, and I'll show you the summary of what we've got in here. So the items that are in yellow are those packages. You'll see that those package numbers carried over to how we have this broken out. Now, the way that we have the base bid amount is at the bottom, the one in the yellow where it says $3,876,000 at the bottom. That's if you do everything. That means if you do the north wing, first and second floor, that's if you do second floor, and that's if you do third floor. That's an entire project number without contingency. Now, we obviously are going to recommend carrying a contingency, and we'll talk about how you fund that in a minute here. But the total project cost without a contingency, which would include professional fees, which would include all of the allowances that we have in here that we'll talk about, is $3,876,000. Now, if you look at alternate 1 and alternate 2, the 2 lines that are on the right-hand side of that dark black line, alternate 1 is if you decide not to do the renovation on first floor east wing, okay? And you would save $377,000 if we didn't do anything on the first floor. If you didn't do anything on the second floor, you would save $347,000. So combined, if you only did the north wing, you're going to save $725,000. Now, first thing that I saw, I wasn't here on bid day, Kurt gave me the summary. The first thing that I questioned was if the contractors understood the split, because it doesn't seem like those numbers are where they should be, right? I was expecting that it would be more of a 50-50 cost. That north wing would be 50% of the cost, and the first and second floor would be another 50% of the cost. The overall project cost is in the ballpark of where we were expecting, $3 to $4 million all in, right? But the split doesn't make sense. So when we go through our qualification process, we're going to confirm that with those contractors to see, did they understand how we wanted to have the separation? So we're just showing you the data that we have today. We need to dig into that through our qualification process, okay? So now let's go through the line items over on the left-hand side. We'll start at the top where administration costs. Those are costs that are part of the project that have to be tied in. So that means our permitting fees, state submittal fees. We've got builder's risk in there. That's a dumpster cost because there's a dumpster percentage for all contractors to be able to deal with that. Temporary partitions and controls. So that is an allowance for the administrative costs that are not carried by the contractors. The next line item is changes at existing building connector. Now, we had some scope that had to be done to be able to get into the building to finish the phase, and this is where we talked last time, Audie, about did we carry that in contingency of phase 1, or do we carry it over into this project because it's truly this phase of a project? That number ends up being $89,000. We chose to put it in this number because it's really tied back into this scope to be able to finish that. If you did decide that we wanted to take that out of contingency, out of phase one, we could. It's going to reduce this number, but in the end, the number is the number in regards to the connector that's there. Okay, it was scope that wasn't included in that budget in phase one, so we put it in this number. Asbestos survey and removal. So there has been asbestos that has been identified. We've got some in some of the insulation and piping. We do have some in some of the flooring and mastic. The total amount of what's in there, we don't have a final number, so we're carrying an allowance of about $100,000. So if we're in there, we open it up, we expose it, we're proposing that we take it out. We're not proposing that we go through the entire building and find every stitch of asbestos. If we get into the space and we're going to run into it, we're going to remove it. Now, I have owners that deal with that differently. Some owners say, let's get it completely out of the building. That number is going to be bigger if we do that. Right now, we're carrying a number that if we open up a ceiling, we open up a wall, we remove the floor, we're going to get rid of the asbestos. Okay, so that's a strategy of how we decide to navigate through the asbestos. The yellow, you can see we got general building package, which we just talked about, the plumbing package, which we just talked about, and we're showing the apparent lows, right, to get you your summary. The item that is in green is something we need to discuss in regards to what we're carrying for an allowance. So adjacent or while we're bidding the project, we did submit the drawings to the state for review. So it's got to go to DSPS for review and approval from the state. The comments that we got back from them last week, it was supposed to be wrapped up here in this month. Comments that got back to them last week is that there are 3 restrooms. I'm sorry, I'm not turning my back to you purposely. There are 3 restrooms that we purposely didn't touch. So we have went to the best that we can to minimize the work that we're doing. There were some restrooms that we said we're just not going to touch them. They're going to stay as is. The state came back and said we don't have the ADA turning radius that we need to have in regards to those. They're not compliant. So we need to do some work on, it's 3 restrooms, right, Kurt? 3 restrooms. So we're budgeting that number is about $100,000. It's going to have to be an added scope that was not in the bid documents. So the way that we can do that is talk to the apparent lows. We do the qualification. We'll firm up this number. But right now, for day's discussion, we're telling you that it's about $100,000 worth of additional work due to state review. HVAC, we've shown the apparent low there. Electrical, we've shown the apparent low that's there. The video surveillance, card reader, and panic system. So this is going to be an extension of the security system that's in the Justice Center, and this is adding additional cameras, this is adding some additional card readers, and this is adding just a connection from the existing building to the new building. We got a number from Accurate Controls to be able to do that as an add-on to their scope of work, and that ties back in to what Accurate would be doing. That number is $197,900. All of those numbers together get to just over $2.9 million. The architectural fee was $350. The fee for the fixed furnishing and equipment, we do not have a budgeted in here to give everybody new furniture. If we want to put new furniture in every office, this number will be larger. We're showing this number in there for a placeholder for some new monitors, just kind of a placeholder for some furniture that's going to need to be upgraded, but we don't have that number in here for FF&E. If we decide we want to put new furniture in every office, this number will be significantly higher. Probably north of $600,000 to $700,000 is probably what that number would be. But just so we understand what the scope is and what we're carrying in there. Our CM services, which would mean my staff here for the next 16 months would be $473,000. That gets us down to the 3.8 or just under $3.9 million. Now the blue item, project contingency, $750,000. We will run into things that obviously were not seen while they were doing the design, or things we're going to uncover when we start to break into the old building. We've picked a number of $750,000. We feel that that's reasonable. It could end up needing to be more than that. Now, right now we have just over $700,000 left in contingency from the Justice Center. That could be a carryover to this and supplement it with a smaller piece. Or you could target this as a $750 in this number, and then you've got a surplus on the Justice Center. So as you start to figure out what you're going to budget for and how you want to budget, I think that $750 to $1 million of contingency is a realistic number for this project, just of what our experience has been of these renovation projects. So, at the end of the day, that's the summary. I know that from a scope perspective, we've skinnied this down so that you can pick or choose. If I'm looking at alternate 1 and alternate 2, what it's costing to do first and second floor, that's cheap compared to what I was expecting it was going to be, but we're not sure if that breakdown is accurate. Questions? I guess I'm not looking for.
Explain to me go over that CM services again. What is that?
CM Services is you're paying for my staff to be here for full-time for 16 months, plus we're going to have a little profit on that.
Well, wouldn't that be in your bid, in your engineering? Would that be in that?
So that,
What are your bid costs even for administration costs? If you bid a project like this, I've never, unless it's a building, I've never seen it. You bid out performance superintendent's cost above and beyond the cost of the actual.
So I don't know if you following the process is that we don't bid. We are coming in as that professional service to manage the job. So the only number that we have in here is that 473. That's going to cover all of my staff for 16 months, plus a little bit of money for profit.
And the architect or fees yours?
The architect is through Venture. So Venture is a different organization than us.
Ah, okay.
Completely different groups. So Venture's fee was $350. That was a fee that they gave us months ago. So to give you a little history on that, Venture had given us a $350,000 fee to do this design. John actually signed that many, many months ago, and I held that change order for them until you guys gave us approval to do that last year. So that number has already been predetermined. And the administrative costs that are up there, those are fees and scope outside of our tie that's there. So.
Do you have an example of that?
Permits, state submittal fee, builder's risk, it's gonna be dumpsters, there's temporary partitions that are in there, and temporary controls, because we're phasing it, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any blueprints with the remodel?
Oh, yeah, we can get you a copy of that, John, I don't have them with me today. Essentially, where the majority of the scope is taking place is in that north wing. So the north wing is where we're bringing county clerk, treasurer up on second floor. We're putting ADRC and veterans down on the first floor so that they're real close to that front door. In health, actually human services stays down on the first floor. Second floor becomes health in the other departments that are left over up there.
Which is a remodel of the courtroom, right?
Correct.
And John, I got a copy of the plan from Karen. Okay.
So again, I'm not looking for any action today because we're not ready to make a recommendation. I wanted to get this in front of you, and that's why I wanted you guys to have this information, because I know you've got budgeting parameters that you got to deal with. You're going to talk about how are we going to fund this. At the end of the day, the contractors know that this still is pending approval of funding, right? So you have a placeholder of what's the number. And we're going to talk to contractors when we qualify them to say, are there any areas that when you bid it, there's potential savings? Like if there's something spec'd in here that we could do X, Y, or Z differently to save some dollars, we'll have those discussions with them. So.
Can you do the numbers guy for us? What number did we kind of come up with, one that we could deal with?
Well, I mean, we could deal with anything, right? The question is, do we want to borrow or not? That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, that's
It depends on whether the contingency from the existing project is legit, and that's what's gonna be out there.
You're talking about the 700.
Correct. And it also, quite honestly, depends on a lot of what we're seeing here. I mean, a 20% contingency on a $4 million project seems like a lot.
It does.
I
Yep.
mean, holy cow, right? It tells me that maybe we didn't do a really good job explaining to those who are bidding what, no offense, right? What, or they didn't understand it, put it that way. And so what we're getting back is maybe gibberish, in terms of what we're really wanting. So I think we need to keep going on the process before we can really decide how close to the number is that we want to decide whether we want to finance or not, or if we have enough funds. I mean,
So
on the contingency, I mean, what if we said no contingency and you need to come to us for everything? And, you know,
And that's the thing, I want you to understand, the contingency is your dollars that are there. How we approve those change orders, we can bring them before you, but it's preparing you so that if you're gonna borrow, that you're not coming back and saying, hey, we're dipping out of the general fund because of the contingency. We can give you historically and say that based on this renovation, and I can tell you right now from working with Jeremy and Tim, the drawings that you have here are not all that accurate. So my concern is when we open
That's
up
my
things,
concern.
when we, I'm not, and that's not Ventures drawings.
No, I know.
I'm talking about existing, is that when we start to open things up, we're gonna uncover things that we don't know about. And you gotta be prepared to be able to address them.
that's what I'm
So-
saying, that's my concern. I mean, we're really almost approving something that we have no idea what the total cost is gonna be. So at some point, we gotta say, yeah, that's great that we think we need to do that, but no, we can't afford it, you know? And I don't know,
Remodels of homes and.
it's tough. I know.
50-year-old or 100-year-old home, it changes.
I mean, like, I get the whole remodel thing, but a $42 million project, and we didn't have near that kind of percentage of a contingency,
Right.
so.
I always recommend carrying a higher percentage on remodel. It's always the wrestling match of what's the value, right? Kurt and I, based on all of the remodels that we've done, feel that 750 is sufficient. So is that sufficient or not? It depends on what we uncover. At the end of the day, you could have $500,000 of it left over. Look, that's great, right? So.
I guess I'm kind of more interested in, let's nail down this process, because we have to have this December, right? You said the numbers in December, they're good till December.
Correct.
Which means we have to have on the agenda for next month's board meeting on the 10th, or what is it? 14th. We have to have that discussion point on that agenda, which means we're gonna have to meet again to talk about what you get back from the low bidders, et cetera, before we can really even make a proposal as to what we're
Yeah,
gonna do.
from a timing perspective, I'm actually gonna be out of on vacation that first week in November. I was actually gonna suggest if property could meet on the 13th, and then be prepared for your meeting on the 14th with kind of a summary of where we stand.
We're already on the 13th.
Correct. Correct.
COVID money, what do we have left there? Does anybody remember or have?
Let's see.
I think that's where we're thinking we were hoping it would cover a good portion of this, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't wanna,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the number that you said for if we did all new furniture in the remodel?
Again, I'm throwing a number out there, 600 to 700.
6 to 7.
Yeah, I thought so.
Weren't they gonna, Dave, weren't they gonna use some of that COVID money for the furnishing since you used it all up in the initial bid? For the project, correct? Weren't they gonna use
That money was already allotted, so it's not, we're not going above and beyond that, yeah.
But that was some of that COVID money, wasn't it, for the furnishings?
A good chunk of COVID money, I'm sure. I thought it was close to 3
I think it was
million.
ARPA funds, basically.
ARPA money, yeah, that's called ARPA, I believe.
But one or the other, but that was still.
Yeah, well,
I think it was,
I think it was about $1.8 million, I believe.
Something like that.
How much
Isn't
again
it the same?
$1.8 million
in the COVID?
in the ARPA funds that
Oh,
have
ARPA.
not been designated.
That's, I was thinking 1.7 million. So
Right,
And
right.
then I
okay.
haven't seen updates, but if I remember right, some of the money that was given to the sheriff's department was not gonna be used. It may come back into there yet. Cause he found some grant for some of that.
I think that's actually gonna go into his 911.
And borrowing for something like this, we can extend it as long as we want, I would
We're gonna
guess,
get
but we don't.
32,000 back.
Then we
from
just
that
pay
in the general
interest.
fund.
Yeah.
It's minimal. I think there's some other monies from the,
Did you hear my comment? We could borrow, really extend this out, but pay interest for 20 years.
for 40.
Or 40.
I don't know if that's a good value.
I mean, then we know we can handle it. We can handle the payment.
Right. I mean, it's,
We don't wanna lose our
we
credit
gotta,
rating.
we gotta understand that we aren't looking at what's gonna be coming in front of us 5 years from now, 4 years from now. I mean, there's other stuff that we're gonna have to deal with, that if we tie ourselves down to a bigger project, at some point, we're not gonna be able to do other things that are coming that we don't know about. So we have to be cognizant of that. But, what's the other money that we're getting from, the drug money? Opioid money. There, I don't know what the rules and regulations are on that. Some of that might be able to be used for certain pieces of this project.
It has to
all
be
depends.
tied for educational purposes in some way, shape, or form, so maybe in the remodel of, say, the health department where they might be doing education or human services.
That's what I'm saying, maybe furniture, stuff like that, that could be tied in.
Something, but in the big scope of things, it's not a huge amount of money for what we're looking at here even, but yes, it's possible we could use it for something.
I don't have my, my paperwork from the last board meeting indicating the amount of money in the unallocated general fund. Do we know what the status of that is?
Something over 5 million at the moment. 5.2?
Did we take some money out of there the other day?
Not yet,
But it's gonna be in the budget.
No,
no.
Oh, it's not, you're not gonna use some of that for the budget. I thought there was going to be some of that utilized for setting the budget.
But not as part of the budget. It's going to be a separate resolution to take some out and advance it into the construction fund.
right, to answer your question, we balanced the budget without going over levy, without taking from the
Just you,
general fund.
not us.
Okay.
If you don't do it, ours and.
What that's saying though is there are normal expenses that we wanted to incur, so for example, on the highway construction that we don't have funded. If the board
Right.
wants to fund that, then we have to pull from the general fund to do that.
And is there going to be a recommendation in terms of the amount?
2 million.
Well, it's up to the highway department.
2 million is what we're looking at.
2? From the 5.5, or give or take? Okay, so that brings it down to 3.5.
Really don't want to go any lower than that.
You know, I think one of the mistakes that the board has made over the years, my early years as well as maybe recent years, is that we don't really vote on what we want to maintain in that fund. And John and I both have had ideas how much we should maintain in there, and I think you're posing your idea, and I think the board needs to take a stand on that rather than, because I think John is pointing out that we have to guard against robbing from that or stealing from that fund, because that basically is our rainy day fund. That's all.
It should never go below 6 months.
Pardon?
operating cost. You never go below.
Which fund are you
6 months
talking about?
General fund.
Unassigned general
I
fund.
don't think that's what he's talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
No, he's talking about the construction fund.
no,
What are you talking about?
no, I'm,
I stand.
okay, the 6%, that figure I hadn't heard before. There is a percent,
No, not percentages. How many months you can operate without anything else?
okay, but that's not the unallocated, that's everything.
Yeah, that's the whole general fund. basically.
That's the whole general fund, right, right. But I think we've never taken a position on how much we want to maintain in that unallocated, because the balance of that general fund is allocated. It is not set in steel, so to speak. It is, but it is there. It's been already planned for. And that would be any of the contingency funds and so forth. In the past, I had fought for $2 to $3 million, but I couldn't get any of the board to take a position on that. And John, your comment about 3.5, I think probably is close to what it needs to be. So that doesn't mean money there, basically. That money is pretty well set aside.
So if I can paraphrase what you're saying is, if we take the 2 million out for highway construction, there isn't enough money left to put into this project, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, that's what John is suggesting that.
You don't wanna go too low on that general fund.
Yeah.
You just-
And I would support that comment, certainly. So that only leaves one option, doesn't it? To do this project, is to borrow money. And that's the option that we don't want to do, or not do it,
There's another option.
or not do as much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
My problem with it, looking at this, after that black line, to do this project first floor, it says it's, it's like 469, or 47,000, or 47, yeah, 47,000 basic, or 48,000. But if you don't do it, it only comes off 300, it doesn't take enough off, 377,000. I don't think it's, if you don't do anything at all on the floor, it ain't taking enough off. Even if we do nothing with the first and second floor, it ain't removing enough from the 4.6 million total there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we still need to confirm down, I agree with you, the amount that's on alternate 1 and 2 for first and second floor does not, it doesn't make sense to me, so we do need to qualify that. But you're right, the number that you're seeing on first and second floor is negligible.
One other question is, if we were to do a alternate 1, alternate 2, would think that your overhead for the whole project would come down as well.
Yeah, that's where he's showing the administrative costs and all those would end up being reduced. So the duration would be reduced in regards to when we're gonna need to be there, so that would go down. Your architectural fees are gonna stay the same. So,
Oh, I see.
yeah. We will make those adjustments once we know if the split or the separation is accurate. So again, today I wanted to just get it in front of you. You don't have to take any action for us. We're gonna continue to qualify and then we will plan to be back here on 13th for you guys with a recommendation. So what you'll see on the 13th would be a list here with a recommendation as to this bid summary as to what we feel should be the awards for the contracts. And then you would be able to take action on it for your board meeting on the 14th.
You want this to be a joint meeting too then?
Could be,
I think it needs to be.
yes, it definitely needs to be.
could be.
I would be very interested in seeing any changes to this alternate 1 and 2 that you mentioned. That
Yes.
my years in the business, it doesn't, the
Correct.
percentage doesn't seem to fit.
Now granted, we really did cut back on first and second floor, so there is, the lion's share of the work is on that north wing, right? We're doing a lot of renovation there, but it just, the amount doesn't line up. So I'm not expecting big swings, but at least maybe something, so.
Well, the north wing basically includes the ADRC,
ADRC veterans, county clerk, and county
upstairs, yes,
treasurer.
yes.
Which is basically the health department now.
Health department ends up moving down on the
Yeah.
second floor, yeah.
Does that include that one courtroom then, evidently?
Yeah, we're ended up remodeling those two.
Okay.
So that's part of the north wing, then, the courtroom renovation.
No, it's not. Actually, that wall that ends there by health right now is where that phase 1 or that north wing ends. So then up beyond that door would be the renovation portion, so. But we'll firm up the details on that for you. That's all I have for you today.
Anybody with any more questions?
You must have did a lot of
I guess we have to have discussion with us
walking yesterday.
and not them, right?
Right, yeah.
Who just come through? Were they from the area or were they
Okay.
from?
And you're,
Get them coming through.
you're on our beck and call for another year and a half.
Yes, absolutely. You'll have to put up with us again.
No, get our money's worth, we'll be calling you once in a while.
So the plan would be to have a joint meeting on that date then, is that right, David?
On which date are we talking for sure?
13th.
Of November?
Yep.
Okay.
But would
8:30.
8:30 here.
would there be a possibility to have a resolution prepared for the 14th that soon?
Oh, yeah, we have she's fast.
Boy,
Put on notice.
he's making quite a commitment here. we won't run into any problem in terms of notification to the public then. That,
At some point, we'd have to get Brian Riley involved with the borrowing thing, I guess, if we decide to go forward, but maybe that doesn't have to be done ASAP, I guess, at some point. I mean, I'm thinking, folks, if we went this far, we do this, we've covered the next 20 years. Otherwise, if we don't do anything here, we're gonna be 5 years down the road to have all kinds of issues possibly, maybe sooner. Or Jeremy can maybe answer that.
If you don't do anything here, I'll be submitting new capital expense projects every year going forward for different things, but, I mean, I have a few other thoughts and recommendations too, but not for this forum at the moment when it comes to this particular project. So I'll talk to property when this is over. Because it's not gonna be helpful or benefit this conversation at all right now.
I agree with Doc that I think we should have everybody and get all avenues of financing or whatever and get them involved so we can have them laid out. Not that we're gonna use them, but at least we can see exactly how everything compares and what it would cost if we did just the north wing, and where we'd get the money from. And so we could have everything spelled out there. So when we would make a recommendation, we'd have our T's crossed and our I's dotted, and we say we exhausted every avenue. And this is the best avenue we came up with.
But in order to do that, Kurt's gotta get a lock on the iffy figures on what if we don't.
I think from the parameter, if you want to reach out to Brian Riley, that total number that we have there and that number, we're gonna be within that number, right? They're gonna honor their bids. It's just a matter of what you want to carve out, like what you're saying is North Wing versus the other one.
What I'm saying is, if we're gonna line up the options, we gotta have firm numbers
for one
on,
and two.
on
Correct.
1 and 2.
Yep.
Which is what we'll have to decide on the 13th.
Yep.
And then we'll have to quickly come up with a proposal for the full board the next day.
could you bring along, John was asking for a copy of the plan.
Yep.
Could you bring along a few extras, and those of us who have it, bring it along, because, so we know what we're talking about then?
Absolutely.
And by not doing certain things, what problems we can determine what problems may occur.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And if you guys are gonna reach out to Brian in advance of the meeting, you can have him connect with us and we'll put together a draw schedule for him as to when you would need funds. So if you need us to submit something to, just let us know.
Anything else? Nope.
Property committee have anything else?
I don't think so.
It'd be interesting to see what the final look like that.
Yep.
First bid package.
Yep.
At least 400 grand on the table, and the other two are so close.
Good.
It makes me wonder,
Yeah, did they miss something?
Yep.
It'd be nice if they didn't.
All right.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I guess, do exec finance need to have anything just separate? Or are we done?
We are gonna
We'll have
meet
a meeting
November
before.
13th at 8:30 a.m. here.
We have property on the 13th.
Yep.
Now, yep, you're having a joint one with Exec, and Exec meets on November 6th.
Right.
November 6th for Exec, and you're gonna come property and Exec November 13th.
On the exec finance, I mean, besides the budget discussion, right, if there's any more on that, we need to talk about other options for finance, or how much would we finance?
But do we talk about that now, or wait till the next one when we've got more firm numbers to work with?
We won't have
I
anything.
don't know that we'll have anything for you before the 6th. If we do, if we get some confirmation from you before the 6th, we'll get it to Sam, or we can get it on your agenda.
I think we can still theorize on what we'd like to do during that meeting. Because I mean, we're all gonna think about it between now and then,
Right, yep.
so.
When the exec finance meets on the 6th, I would assume that there will be a probably some attention given to looking at available funds that,
Yes.
like in the different funds that we've talked about earlier. So if we could, it'd be nice to have that available to visit about.
I had planned to have those numbers that we had talked about with me today. They're laying on my desk.
Yeah, well, that's, you need an office here, David.
What's that?
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
But just off the top of my head, I believe we had come up with about 2.8 that we could find without dipping into the contingency fund or borrowing. So,
Does that include road construction?
yes, well, no, no.
So if you
Road
take
construction
that-
is another
That
issue.
2 you were talking about there, it only leaves 800,000 basically.
What's that now?
You were talking about 2 for construction.
Yeah, that's in a resolution
That's separate
separate from all of this.
Part of
So
what
that's-
we don't know is the amount of additional funds that we're getting from increased sales tax along the way. That plays a big part into where the general fund sits, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite possible that we would have an additional 1 to 2 million in additional
Coming.
sales tax monies if things
Showing
keep
up by the
going on
time
the
we get
pace that
done,
they're
yeah.
going.
And the investments.
Right.
The investments are beating the budget by close to $100,000 a month.
The thing that, historically, that sales tax has been fairly stable. It's gone, it's bounced around a little bit, but this recent years has been unusually high increase, and I don't know if it'd be nice if we could count on that, but I'm not sure we can.
Of course, for 24, we boosted it a little bit for 24 in our proposed budget, but not a lot. And the same with the investments got boosted quite a bit for the budget, because they're anticipating interest rates are gonna stay similar to where they are for at least the next year.
Wasn't it another 300,000 in interest we're getting just with things the way they were? That number seems to,
It was more than that,
Yeah, that
Was it?
seems very low.
yeah.
That may be how much it is, well, I shouldn't say that, I don't know that.
I think that number is laying on my desk too, or, no, I think she sent that out here.
again, it all plays into the general fund, so we'll be taking from the general fund one way or the other to bring down the amount that we're going to borrow. So the question is, if we borrow, what is that number we're
Yeah.
comfortable with?
Right here.
Oh, you got it in there on paper, on real paper, huh? Yeah, okay, yeah, no, that's delinquencies, here we go. The original budget for this year was 200,000, and as of the end of September, we've surpassed that by 679,000. So by the end of the year, it's gonna be over $1 million above budget
That's the sales tax.
for 23. No, interest income,
Interest, oh, yes.
interest income. So by the end of the year, it's gonna be over $1 million in additional that's going back into the unassigned general fund,
That's
roughly.
that's partially why it's up as high as it is.
And why, even if we take it down to that 3.2 now, another 2 or 3 months will bring that back up to over 3.5.
Which gets us close to this number.
Yeah. So. Okay, well, I think we've got a plan to move forward.
Sounds good.
I will adjourn the property committee at 9:15.
Yeah.
And I will adjourn the exec finance at the same time.